Good evening and welcome to the Library Advisory Commission LAC board meeting for July 18th, 2022. This meeting is being recorded and streamed live to YouTube. Your commissioners and SCPL staff who are presenting are displayed on the screen. And the chair of the commission, Lindsay Bass, will now call the meeting to order. We're transitioning to gallery view. Please stand by.
Great, thank you, Moderator Jones. We'll now call our July 18th meeting of the Library Advisory Commission to order. Clerk Simona Vargas, will you please call the roll?
Jennifer Mount, absent, I think. Yeah. Mary Ripma.
Here.
Mike Termini. I think you're muted. Oh.
I'm here.
Pamela Woll.
Here.
Tricia Wynne.
Here.
Vice Chair Rena Dubin.
Here.
And Chair Lindsay Bass.
Here. Thank you so much. That'll take us to item 2 on the agenda, which is the adoption of tonight's agenda. Are there any questions or?
So moved.
We have a move of tonight's agenda, and I believe Vice Chair Dubin is going to second that. Yes, great, thank you both. Clerk Simona Vargas, will you please do a roll call vote?
Jennifer Mount is absent. Mary Ripma.
Aye.
Mike Termini.
Aye.
Pamela Woll.
Aye.
Tricia Wynne.
Aye.
Vice Chair Rena Dubin.
Aye.
And Chair Lindsay Bass.
Aye. Our agenda is adopted, which brings us to item 3 on the agenda tonight, which is oral communications. So just briefly, any member of the audience may address the board on any matter, either on or off the agenda that is within the board's jurisdiction. Note, however, that the board is not able to undertake extended discussion or act on non-agendized items. Such items can be referred to staff for appropriate action, which may include placement on a future agenda. If you intend to address a subject that is on the agenda, please hold your comments regarding that item until it is before the board, so that we may properly address all comments on that subject at the same time. In general, 3 minutes will be permitted per speaker during oral communications. Moderator Jones, do we have any oral communications from the public tonight?
Chair Bass, I do not see any oral communication from the public.
Okay, thank you. Then we'll move on to item 4 on the agenda tonight, which is the report out by our library director, Director Wilbur. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair Bass. I have included my library director's report in the agenda in written format. A couple of things that I do want to call your attention to. Our Scotts Valley Library will be having its grand reopening on August 6th. That grand reopening will take place from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. We're really excited that we're going to get another library back open for the Scotts Valley community. And so I want to wish you all the pleasure of coming out to enjoy that with us. We'll be looking forward to hearing from the mayor, our new city manager in Scotts Valley, Molly Legault, as well as our supervisor, Bruce McPherson, and other people from the community. We're going to have lots of great story time and craft things going on. So please come out and join us for that event. Again, we're just thrilled to be opening another library for the community. Another piece that I'm going to ask Moderator Jones to put up on the screen now, I wanted to just share, this is something new that I will be adding to my library director's report. This is a communique from our California Library Association lobbyists. They work very closely with the California Library Association, which I serve on the board of. And so they update us with what's coming out in the new budget. And so as you can see here, the budget was finalized. We are so thrilled that we're going to be receiving additional funding for the Lunch at the Library program. We currently do participate and get grant funding from this program, so we're really excited that that is going to be continuing. Previously, we only got $1 million to spread throughout libraries across California, and now that will be $5 million that will be made available to libraries. So to be able to feed kids in the library who may not otherwise get a meal, but also to help with the summer slide, prevent summer slide by encouraging them to read and participate in our programs and activities is really exciting. Additionally, there is an additional $50 million. As you may recall, there was the $439 million that was made available last year for library infrastructure grants. And so the legislature is increasing that by adding an additional $50 million in one-time funding during the 22-23 fiscal year. And then there is an intent to provide an additional $100 million in the following year. So we're really excited about that. We may be going out and trying to apply for some additional funding if there are pieces that we want to add onto our library infrastructure with. The $10 million in one-time funding for online job training and workforce development resources. As you may recall, we actually did get a piece of this grant previously. Our Life Literacy Center really has been able to support a lot of that work by helping people train for jobs, as well as assistance with writing resumes and those types of things. And then this is something that's new this year. Dolly Parton has this Imagination Library, and some of you may have heard about this. And the program really registers kids through the libraries ages 0 to 5 to receive free books. The books are sent to their home. And so the state is going to be funding $68 million into that program to ensure that young children, our early readers, can get books that they can keep at home, and that will hopefully spark a lifelong love of reading. And those are just some of the highlights that I wanted to focus on tonight. But again, I'll be including this news from the Capitol report as those come through, and updating our commission on other grants and things going on with the California State Library. And with that, that is the end of my report. I'm happy to take any questions that you may have.
Yes, Commissioner Wynne.
Thanks so much. Wow, this is just a lot of great news. So fantastic. Yolande, could you answer 2 questions for me? The first is, did we do something with the Lunch at the Library program in the past? And then how will that morph with more money this year? And then secondly, I know you applied for a state library grant. And I wondered if you could give us an update on that, if we've heard anything, or what the deadline, what the timeline is. Thanks very much.
Certainly. So yes, our Lunch at the Library program, we've done that. This year we're doing pop-ups in a variety of different places for the Lunch at the Library program. And so really excited that this will mean that hopefully we can get more money. Typically, the state library will ask us what capacity you have to support the program. So obviously we'd love to be able to do more, and we'll be looking at applying for a higher level of funding for that program. Also, with the state infrastructure grant, I think that's the one that you're talking about, we had applied for the infrastructure grant. We did apply for $10 million for the downtown Santa Cruz library, the new construction. We have not heard back yet. We're anticipating news any day. The state library did get 275 applications for the fund, the initial $439 million, the 275 applications equated, if every grant were filled, it equated to $550 million. And so that's why I think they're putting through this additional funding in the state legislature. My understanding is the state library did have an independent panel that they brought together to go through all of the grant applications. That process is done. The applications have now gone back to the state library. And so we are just in the process of waiting for them to announce the awards. So any day now is what we're hoping.
Great, thank you. Any other questions on the director's report from commissioners? Yes, Vice Chair Dubin.
Hi, I just had a staffing question on the current vacancies. I didn't know if there were any. It says that the interviews were completed, and I just wasn't sure when you thought that the hiring process would be going through. It seems very slow from the outside.
Yes, so interviews and I believe that's on the management analyst position. So interviews are completed. We have a process that we need to go through with checking references, ensuring that the person, will accept all of that stuff. And then we also have our fingerprinting and background checking that we do for the libraries. So all of our staff go through that process. And so we're in that process right now. So until everything is finalized and firmed up, we hold it in a pending state. So we're keeping our fingers crossed. As you know, we've had a couple of instances where someone may have accepted and then they said, whoa, that's expensive. And so things change. So we just make sure that we're in the final stages of everything before we announce that the position is fully filled.
Great, thank you, Vice Chair Dubin. For the question, any additional questions or comments for the director? Seeing none, we will then move on to item 5 on the agenda. We are thrilled to have Executive Director Cotter back with us for this meeting. Good to see you, Bruce. And I will hand the floor over to you for the Friends of Santa Cruz Public Libraries report out.
Great, thank you very much, Chair Bass, and good to see you all again. It's been a while. Since I last spoke with you, we've distributed the annual funding to the library, about $56,000, and as well as $18,000 from the Realizing the Promise campaign for the Branch of 40 branch for furniture for the children. In addition, we supported the openings at Garfield Park and Boulder Creek, as well as having donor events for our many generous donors for both of those facilities. And I certainly join Director Wilmer in inviting you all to come on the 6th to see yet another library reopen. Frankly, our primary activity right now is focused on ensuring that this ballot initiative that is opposed to the mixed-use facility downtown does not pass. We have been tabling at a variety of locations, variety of events, including most recently, I would say, the wonderful Juneteenth event at the London Nelson Center Park. We will continue those activities through the balance of the year. We have also made a substantial cash donation to the organization that is in opposition to ODOF to help them get started. I know that you will be considering a little bit later today a motion from Vice Chair Dubin that you formally restate your opposition to the ballot initiative. I would like to say, for the record, the Friends have made the same decision and have formally issued their opposition. And we would strongly recommend that you do the same. If this ballot initiative does not pass, we believe that the results could be devastating to the city in terms of not having as good of a library, not having as efficiently priced of a library, not having as welcoming and modern as a library, and losing the ground we have gained in terms of getting some additional housing for affordable housing for downtown in the short term. So very strongly in favor of Vice Chair Dubin's recommendation. I'm pleased to be able to say that our president, Janice O'Driscoll, has been elected to a second term as president of the Friends. Janice has been a remarkable leader over the last year. She comes with the experience of having been an assistant director of the library, so she knows the library from the inside as well as knowing the Friends, and has just been, like I say, a terrific leader. We're glad we'll have her for another year. Cindy Jackson will serve as vice president. Lynn Marcus Weiner will be our secretary. Keith Gudger will continue as our treasurer. We appreciate the work that Martin Gomez, our former vice president, and Nora Brink, our retiring secretary for life, have given the board over the last few years. Both Martine and Nora will be remaining on the board. Also, Pete Cullen is retiring, and we thank him for his service as well. And that is the extent of my report, unless you have any questions for me, which I would be happy to answer.
Great, thank you so much, Bruce. Commissioners, are there any questions or comments for Executive Director Cotter? None? Great, thank you so much for joining us tonight, Bruce. All right. That takes us then to item 6 on the agenda, which is our member reports. So commissioners, if there are any report outs that you would like to make. So I see hand raised by Commissioner Termini, and then we'll go to Vice Chair Dubin.
If you give me 2 minutes and allow me to share my screen. Someone has to give me permission though, sorry. I will give you the update on Aptos.
Commissioner Termini, you should be able to share your screen.
And I can, there we are. Okay, well, we all know what it's going to look like, but let me show you what we started with. We had a pretty exciting month, tearing down a perfectly good building, but not perfectly good, just didn't suit our needs. This is us taking it to the ground. All the dirt coming out, we dug down 4 feet to get rid of nasty dirt and bring in good dirt. And now we're digging foundations. And these are the foundations filled with steel. They'll be poured this coming week. And hopefully next month, I will bring you pictures of a nice, flat, smooth slab where our library will be. And hopefully I'll be able to do this for you on an ongoing basis. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing the pictures. It makes it very real. And we'll look forward to further updates. It
is realer than real out there right now.
Yeah. Okay, moving along to Vice Chair Dubin.
Oh, I just wanted to say that I went to the Garfield Park branch opening, and it was it's just such a delightful library. The event was really well attended, and the library is just so beautiful. And then I went back a week later because I was in the neighborhood and needed a library. So we went in, and it was just filled with people just enjoying themselves. And, you know, someone was napping in a chair. There were like 4 people using the computers, and there were lots of kids. And it just warms my heart to see that it's being used in the way that it was designed for. So.
Excellent. Fantastic report out. I'll go to Commissioner Wynne and then Commissioner Ripma.
Thanks so much, Lindsay. Mike, thank you for that report. I'm an Aptos library person. I miss it, and I drive by every day, and I'm watching them. They're there early in the morning. They're there late in the afternoon. I'm so terribly excited. So I appreciate the update. So Mike, are you kind of a liaison with Bogard, or are you working with the county, or are you with the architect?
All of those things.
Okay.
The company I work for is on the design team. I design the lighting. And we are the design build electrical contractors under Bogard Construction.
Cool.
Interfacing with the county. Yes to all of those.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. I just kind of want to wrap my head around your role, and I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner Wynne, for the clarifying question. And then we'll go to Commissioner Ripma.
So I wanted to second what Rena said. I went to the library to pick up my hold at Garfield Park for the first time in a long time. And it's just a wonderful part of the neighborhood and so well done. So I also just was going to mention that I feel so grateful to be part of this because I get a heads up about things that I might not have heard about. And one of them is the State Park Pass. So right after our last meeting, I got on the wait list and it didn't take very long. And we had decided not to buy one this year. And we just had 3 weeks where we had access. So it was really good. And the other thing I found out about in this report from the director is the Connected California. So I'm working with the AAUW and some of us need some computer skill upgrade. So I sent a message to Connected California and the guy got right back to me and we have scheduled a meeting on Zoom for tomorrow at 10 a.m. So, I think citizens might want to watch our broadcast so that they would have these, get a heads up right away on these different features that we're offering.
Great comments, Commissioner Ripma. I'll second. I was the comment about the State Park Pass, and I was thrilled to see that you guys have been able to expand those, so that there's more in the offering. So that's really exciting. And not to be too much of an echo to the positive comments that have already happened on Garfield Park reopening, but took my nephews, that's their new neighborhood library, to the grand opening. They got their first library cards because they've been pandemic kids shut in. And yeah, it was really, really cool to see them gravitate towards the computers and check out books. And as we were walking out the door, having them, not want to go and already asking when they could come back. So really, really cool to see the impact of that new facility. Lots of good things happening in the system. Any other report outs from commissioners before we move along? Okay, the next item then on our agenda is item 7. This is our consent calendar. We've got several items on the consent calendar. It's beefy. So I'm going to just review quickly what is there. We have the May 16 meeting minutes. We have the recent article compilation, the resolution authorizing us to continue to use remote teleconference for our meeting. We have 3 library policies that are there for our review. That's the freedom to view, the freedom to read, and the Library Bill of Rights. And then a pretty outstanding 4th quarter work plan put together by Assistant Director Howard, which was awesome. A lot of work represented there. So that's what is included in the consent calendar to approve and move those items through. Are there any questions or requests to pull items? Okay, I'll go to Commissioner Wynne and then Commissioner Termini.
Well, before I move approval of the consent calendar, I just really want to take a minute to thank, the library staff for putting it together. The minutes are well done. I love the news articles. We haven't, gotten that in the past, and I've seen a lot of it because I read a lot of news, but it is really helpful to just see it all put together. I'm very grateful that we can use this Zoom format as we, continue to watch COVID numbers spike. And I really appreciated very much the policy about open access. I thought it was just very well put together. So thank you all very much. And with that, I move approval of the consent calendar.
I will second approval, and I have a question, Chair Bass.
Go ahead.
With regard to the Library Bill of Rights, Yolanda, some years ago, we made a pretty powerful statement when we were asked to turn over borrowing records of patrons. And I may have missed it, but that is still our hard and fast policy to not do that. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Just checking in.
Great. So we have a move of approval of the consent calendar by Commissioner Wynne and a second from Commissioner Termini. Clerk Simona Vargas, will you please do a roll call vote?
Jennifer Mount is absent. Mary Ripma,
Aye.
Mike Termini,
Aye.
Pamela Woll,
Aye.
Tricia Wynne,
Aye.
Vice Chair Rena Dubin,
Aye.
and Chair Lindsay Bass.
Aye. So that adoption of the consent calendar passes unanimously. Thank you, everyone. That brings us to item 8, which is presentations. This is one that we've been waiting for. We have Laura Whaley and Assistant Director Howard with us tonight to give a presentation on the new staffing model. Assistant Director Howard, Laura, the floor is yours.
Actually, Chair Bass, I will go ahead as Moderator Jones cues up maybe their slides. I just wanted to take a moment to preface this. So the commission had received a report from Laura Whaley and Assistant Director Howard several months ago with regard to a staffing plan that was taken to our board. They were asked to do a little bit more work on it. And so since I began with the library system, I have been going out and meeting with different library staff from different branches, from different departments, to really try and get a good understanding of what our staffing needs are. And so we are prepared to present this report to you this evening because we think we have found sort of a phased approach that we're going to be taking. And this is part of phase 1. One of the biggest things that we heard in going out and doing the listening sessions was the shortage of staff that we have to be able to open branches every day. So that's largely our library assistant 2s who work the circulation desk counters at branches. And as I'm sure you can imagine with COVID, people have been in and out. We don't want people to come if they're sick and not feeling well. We prefer them to stay home, but we also want to make sure that we have adequate, highly professional and trained staff to be able to work in our buildings. And so the model that we've been using really relied heavily on our temporary staff, and the temporary staff might be brought in as sort of a one-off to help fill in so that someone didn't need to be at the branch by themselves. But what we've really want to tackle here are 2 pieces. One is to make sure we have adequate staffing, but 2 is to make sure that the staff that we have in the branch are trained and they're professional and they understand what we do. So we found that there was a little bit of a gap with that by bringing in temporary staff all the time. So what we're proposing in this plan is to have highly trained staff by bringing on permanent positions and staffing our branches adequately. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Director Howard and Laura Whaley to do their presentation and talk more about this.
Great. Thank you, Yolande, and good evening, commissioners. I think Yolande is being a little humble here. She is, I'm very excited because I think she's taking us in a really new and very positive direction. And we're going to get into the weeds a little bit on this so that you understand why this change is happening, but also the implications of this change, because they are pretty fundamental. And we've also been very fortunate with some recent changes in the MOE, which we are going to get to as well. And that is allowing us to do some of these take some of these really positive steps. So this is the slide that we presented to you, as Yolande said, a little while back. And this is still what we're striving to do. But now I think we're going to be able to do it a little bit, even a little bit better because of some of this new direction. So let's go to the next slide, please. So here's the ultimate goal. We want to provide adequate staffing levels to create smoother and less stressful operations, recruit, train, and retain benefited permanent staff, reduce job fatigue created through staff having to hold multiple positions, ensure excellent customer service, meet strategic goals to have librarians dedicated to meeting program outreach and service needs. So that's a lot. And that, well, if we could, let's just go back to that slide, and we'll stay on this for just a minute or two. And so let me paint a picture for you. When the Great Recession occurred and we reduced staffing, we never really got back to that. We didn't actually get close to that staffing level that we were at. And this has put stress in a number of ways on staff and how we're able to execute our mission. First, as Yolande was saying, we've relied since the Great Recession heavily on unbenefited staff who come in as substitutes essentially when staff are out sick, or really just to kind of keep the doors open. And this has been far from ideal. The stress that this puts on staff also is put on librarians. So as Yolande was saying, and on all staff, I should say, but as Yolande was saying, we rely, and we're going to get to this in a minute too, on library assistants to manage customer accounts. They are our paraprofessionals. So typically, when you go up to the desk, or as the chair was saying, when her nephews got their library card, in most cases, it's a library assistant who is working with them on their account to either get them a new card, to help assist them with the books that they have out, or how to navigate the library system. In addition to the library assistants, we have the professional staff that typically have a master's in library and information science. They're the ones who do the assessment on the community in terms of what programs and services we need, and then they help us design those programs. They also provide reference work, and they are also the staff typically who are skilled at selecting the items that we purchase. So everything from the books to the videos to the databases that we use, and much, much more. So that's what their job is really going to be, is targeted on. Oftentimes, though, when we've had such minimal staffing levels as we've had, they've had to also come out and help keep the lights on at the library. So they are doing multiple things, and really what we want to get to is a place where they can be very intentional with their focus, and then where the library assistants don't feel like they're running in 3 different directions either to keep the lights on. And as Yolande said, ultimately, so that we have staff who are trained, very well trained to do what we're asking them to do. And so this first phase that Yolande talked about is where we have Yolande led a number of staff, including Jen Hooker, who has left us. She's took a new position in the new library system, but before she left, she helped us do this analysis of how many library assistants we really need, so that we're not always calling up for these substitutes, so that if we do have people go out, we can rely on other branches to come over and help us out, and we won't be falling behind that minimum level. So let's go now to the next slide. So this is I was covering some of the challenges. And as I mentioned, since the Great Recession, the library has relied heavily on temporary staff. Minimum staffing reduces levels of service. Covered some of this ground already, but just going down the list to make sure I didn't forget anything here. The lower staff levels result in reduced training and professional development capacity. Frequently, temporary staff work with less training than benefited staff. Library admin, so here at headquarters, the staff here invest significant time, as you can imagine, calling up substitutes, trying to figure out how they can grab someone and slide them over to keep the lights on. Because typically we have that perfect storm. It's that perfect storm when you have minimal staffing levels increases, where you have people who are out sick and who are also on vacation, or are somewhere on a training or doing some other activity. So we're trying to get to that staffing level so that we don't experience this perfect storm so often, hopefully hardly at all. And that way it'll free time from library admin, who are required to do many other things as well. Professional staff are pulled away from librarian duties when needed for customer service coverage. And I think I mentioned it in here, but the other thing too is when we have temporary staff, that means we have to be training them all the time as well. So that pulls away from staff as well. So the idea here is let's really be intentional in how we spend our time. Okay, let's go on to the next slide, please. So here are some of the opportunities with where we're headed. The large temporary budget that we currently have and rely on to get these substitutes, this will now permit us to convert part of that budget, not all of it, but part of that budget into benefited positions. That will get us some more benefited positions. In addition to that, just recently, a new MOE was worked out, and it will add over $1 million to the library's operating budget. That too will be used to get more benefited staff. Refocusing LA2's role to nearly exclusively support public service can permit librarians to refocus their attention on other services and programs. Plus, additional staff increase professional development and training opportunities. Okay, let's go on to the next one. All right, I'm actually now going to turn this over to Laura, who's going to get into some of the weeds for you on how this will affect each of the branches.
Good evening. Hi, nice to see you all again. So what we're looking at is schedules that allow each branch to absorb at least one staff person calling out sick or needing to go to a training. And that's not going to trigger one of these critical fills that we're currently experiencing. They can operate with one person gone without needing any other coverage with the schedules that we're proposing. And to kind of show you what we're looking at with Aptos, they would have 5.25 full-time employees, and that's broken down into the branch manager, which is an LA3. They would have 3 full-time LA2s, a 75-hour LA2, a 0.75 FTE LA2, which equates to 30 hours, and then a 0.5 LA2, which is a 20-hour. And Aptos right now, even though their staff is deployed at Capitola, we only need to increase that staffing level by a 0.25 to get them to this level. Now at Boulder Creek, we are looking at an additional 0.75, which will allow us to have the full-time branch manager, a full-time LA2, a 0.75 LA2, and then a 0.5. This is really important for the smaller branches, especially because they tend to be in the more remote areas. It's very difficult to fill these branches. And by having the staff on hand, we're not going to be doing these desperate calls or Eric having to go out to one of them, or, I've even gone out a few times. At Braniff 40, we're looking at increasing their FTE for being basically a downtown Santa Cruz branch with a great deal of the same situations that happen at the main downtown. They only had a 2.5 FTE staff pre-pandemic. And so we want to get them up to a really robust schedule. So we're looking at the LA3 full-time, 2 full-time LA2s, the 0.75 LA2, and a half-time LA2. So we're looking at increasing by 1.75 FTE with this. This, again, if they can absorb someone calling in sick, they also have the staff to have a really safe, secure location. So we're looking forward to this one. Capitola is currently scheduled for 7 days a week, and so it has a larger staff than Aptos or Scotts Valley. And so we are looking at replicating what we currently have now with the temporarily reassigned Aptos staff. And so that's the library assistant 3 full-time, 4 full-time LA2s, and then 2 half-time LA2s. What we're going to do with Capitola, we currently have 1 FTE set aside that was allocated to the branch. And so we're looking to add, not including that, a 2 FTE. As Capitola, I'm sure you all know how busy it is, was originally slated to have a full-time LA2, 1 full-time LA2, and then 4 half-time LA2s. And that is not near enough for 7 days a week for a branch of its busyness. It's very well used. Downtown, we're only looking at an increase in 0.5 FTE, and that will, I have to do a little switch of where things are on the screen right now for me if I can. But we're looking at, downtown has a full-time LA4 branch manager. This is a position that has a greater level of experience and system duty than an LA3. It does have an LA3 full-time. That individual primarily is running the day-to-day operations of the branch. Then they have, I'm sorry, half of my screen is blocked and I cannot move it. So I'm terribly sorry. They have 3 full-time LA2s, 2.75 LA2s, and then 2 half-time LA2s. At Felton, we're also increasing their staff. They will be open 6 days a week. So we're looking at having a 4.25 FTE, and this is a full-time LA3, 2 full-time LA2s, the 0.75 LA2, and a half-time LA2. So we're looking at increasing again a 1.75 FTE. Garfield is interesting because we're going to, as Eric spoke, we have some staff that have 2 separate positions. They work 20 hours at a branch, and then they may have a 20-hour position in a systems team role. And what they're having to do is spend 4 hours in the morning doing one job, and then they have a break, and then they're doing 4 hours for another. And it's frustrating for them. It's frustrating for us because it is very restrictive. And so what we're going to do at Garfield is combine one of, it sounds strange, combine one of those people. We're going to take their 2 disparate positions, merge them together. And with that, we actually don't need to add any staff because it's all already existing at Garfield. So super busy little branch, as you were all talking about, is great. It's beautiful. I was out there this morning. Silva Beach, this Silva, unlike everyone else, is going to remain with its current, I'm sorry, let me correct that. Capitola and Downtown will retain their current hours of 50 hours a week. Silva Beach is going to retain its current 38 hours a week. And the community is very happy with the 5 days a week. So we're not going to go any further at this time. And so we only need an increase of a 0.5 FTE. And that will get us a full-time LA3, a full-time LA2, and then a half-time LA2. And could we go to the next slide, Sarah? Thank you. So this is Live Oak, where we're looking at a 1 FTE increase, and that will be a second full-time LA2 to go with their current staff of the full-time LA3, the full-time LA2, this 30-hour LA2, and the half-time LA2. Scotts Valley actually is fully staffed right now. So, well, it will be once we hire everyone. So we don't have to do any increase of FTE here. One of the ways, I'm sorry, I forgot to mention with Garfield, why we don't have to add anyone is we will be transferring one of the 0.75 FTE LA2 positions that's currently at Downtown and slide them over to Garfield. So that's how Garfield has a net 0 on that one. So we are looking at adding 8.5 FTE of LA2, and they really are the backbone of the library. They are doing all the circulation. They are handling the vast majority of customer service. They're doing the greatest amount of material handling, and we could not operate without these folks. And as Eric mentioned, when you have our temporary staff come in, they typically are not trained as robustly as the full-time staff. And they're not necessarily familiar with the branch. They're wonderful people. I appreciate them to no end. I want to make that really super clear. But it does mean that the staff on site may have to be refreshing the temporary staff's knowledge about the branch and kind of keeping an extra ear out just in case. And that's very stressful for the permanent benefited staff. And so I really believe that by going to this 8.5, we're going to take some of that stress and tension away from the regular staff. Sorry, I'm using the wrong term, the benefited staff. So Sarah, could we go to the next? Now this shows our branch hours, and we are slowly rolling these out right now as we reopen branches. So Aptos, Boulder Creek, Brazoforte, Felton, Garfield Park, Live Oak, and Scotts Valley will have 46 hours per week. That's a Monday through Saturday schedule. The open hours are based on a 1 full-time shift of 8 hours. So our staff will be devoting the vast majority of their time to being there for the open hours. And a typical schedule for a staff person would be come in at 9:45. The branch will open at 10. The staff person will end their day at 6:15, which gives us time to prepare before opening and then do the closing at the end. And we don't have to consider having a secondary shift when we have an 8-hour day. Anytime you go beyond 8 hours, you have to start planning for a second shift. Not necessarily the best use of time. You get a lot of overlap that you just have a lot of people that, you know, it's a little frustrating. Friday and Saturday is 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Those are our traditional hours for a Friday and Saturday schedule. And then we would be closed on Sunday at these locations. Capitola and downtown, 50 hours per week. Their extra 4 hours are coming from the Sunday, 1 to 5. And then Silva Beach is happy with their 5 days a week, which is a Tuesday through Saturday schedule. And again, everything is based on that single shift for the opening hours. Sarah, could you go? Thank you. So here's the logic behind it. So the staffing at all locations is focusing on maximizing customer service during open hours and to minimize the critical vacancies that threaten branch operations. And as proposed, all branches can continue to operate with a staff vacancy. Some of the larger branches could continue to operate with 2 vacancies. Our biggest concern is making sure that our staff have their breaks, their lunch breaks. And at Boulder Creek, Garfield Park, and Silva Beach, it may be necessary to have a staff person go up to the branch to provide those breaks. But what we're proposing is someone from Felton or Scotts Valley would go to Boulder Creek. Someone from downtown could go over to Garfield. And once Aptos reopens, someone could go down to La Selva. And questions?
And if I could just add one thing, Laura, that was great. This was just a couple quick points on all of this. Again, this is really just a phase 1 where we're looking at public service and that backbone that Laura talked about, which are our library assistants. We otherwise call them as LA2s or LA3s or LA4s. And then the second phase, we'll really examine and analyze needs for librarians and also the other functions of the library. You may remember, of course, we provide services to the county's correctional facilities. We have a bookmobile. It goes all across the county. And so we have other services as well. But this is really to shore up our strength in with the new buildings that we have. And then we'll go into the next phase and examine that. So we'll be bringing this to the joint powers in August. And so that's just the top points that I wanted to leave you with.
And thank you, Eric and Laura. I will also chime in with a few closing remarks now that you've all had the chance to see this. I think Laura did mention in many of these instances, we really looked deeply at this, and it wasn't necessarily that we had to add a whole nother person. We just needed to take a person who's working half-time and add another 20-hour position to give them a 40-hour work week. And so that's another piece that I heard from a lot of our staff as I did the listening sessions, that we have a lot of these staff who have worked for us for years, and they're having to piece together like 2 part-time jobs just to make a living. And both those part-time jobs might be with us. Laura mentioned this, where we have staff who in the morning, they might be up at Boulder Creek, but then in the afternoon, they've got to drive down to get their other part-time job at another library. And that just didn't make a lot of sense to me. It really puts stressors on our staff. And as much as Laura said, we really appreciate the great work that our temporary library staff have provided for us. We do believe that it is important that we support our staff, their mental health and their livelihoods, right? We want them to stay with us. We want them to be trained and well informed. And then another piece to this is, with the staffing the way that it is, doing 6 days a week, we planned purposefully. We know that typically weekends are one of those issues, right? Monday and the Friday, Saturday can be concerning. People often want to take off or have things that they want to do. And so with these staffing models, we have enough staff. We have adequate staffing for those weekend wrap days, but it also gives us a little bit of excess staffing on the Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And that gives us the time that we can pull staff off the desk and say, we need you to go and take training, right? We are constantly having to deal with new technologies, new rules, policies, regulations, and to make sure that our staff have the time to train on those things, we have to provide them time. And so by having this adequate staffing level throughout the week, that gives us the perfect opportunity for Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday to really serve as great times when staff can come off the desk and take the training that they need to continue to be professional with our patrons. And I think those are the big pieces I wanted to add. We're happy to take any questions that you all might have. I'll turn it back over to you, Chair Bass.
Excellent. Thanks so much for the wonderful presentation. Super informative. I saw hands up earlier from Commissioner Termini, Vice Chair Dubin, and Commissioner Wynne. So we'll go in that order. Commissioner Termini, do you want to kick us off?
Can you tell me how many more staff will we need for the outreach, the bookmobile? Is that in addition to everything we've just seen counted up?
It is not, and we specifically wanted to look at opening the doors right now. So we did not, we've got people who are working the bookmobile right now, and that's working just fine. That's typically not necessarily an area that we have the stressors of people kind of not being available, because they often work. There are 2 people, right, who are doing that. Yeah. So this really focused on those library assistant 2s. We will be going back to look at librarians as a phase 2 piece, and that gets to us having a librarian dedicated to each branch. It's something that I've heard overwhelmingly from community members that say, hey, I just need to know who's my librarian for there. And so part of this scheduling that we've planned does dedicate librarians to be in the branch on specific days. Other days, they might be out doing outreach or programming, but we are relying on those librarians to participate in this as well. And we really didn't schedule them so that they would be on the desk, but they would be in their communities, gathering information, talking with their patrons, maybe providing a story time or doing other programming. And so that's why that is another phase, because we really want to look at in that next phase with our librarians, what are the programs, outreach, and services that we should be presenting. As you've seen from the work plan, we do a lot of stuff. And so there's a sense that our librarians are getting a little overwhelmed because in addition to doing all that stuff, then they might also have to work the desk because we didn't have adequate staffing levels for the desk. And so we're freeing up the librarians to be able to focus on programming, outreach, and services. We're freeing up that library assistant 3 that you saw in the schedule, library assistant 4s and library assistant 3s. We don't want them generally working on the desk for half the day. They should be managing. Their library managers, and so we need them to manage. And that means you're scheduling your staff, you're ensuring that they're getting training, their evaluations are done on time, you're able to communicate with them to determine what their needs are with regard to training. You're overseeing your branch, making sure that the facilities are operating appropriately, all of those good things. So this really is about getting everybody back into being able to focus on the things that they should be doing to make us successful across the board.
Well, let me just say that this is an absolute dream schedule, open hours, days, number of staff in each branch. I'm, amazed and so elated. Do we have the budget?
We do have the budget. And again, I think Assistant Director Howard talked a little bit about that temporary budget. So we were carrying a temporary staffing budget of close to $1 million. And so we are not going to take all of that. We do provide some temporary services. Our library aides, as an example, come out of that temporary budget. And so we're still going to continue to have our library aides. And we want to make sure we have enough of them on staff as well. We just don't want to count them in being able to open. We can't rely on them to open the branch. A library aide cannot open a branch. And so that's why we didn't show them to you here, but they are a piece of this. We will continue to maintain that part of that temp budget. We do have some people who come in and they proctor exams, and those are temporary staff because they just come in to proctor an exam for a couple of hours. That still can come out of that budget. And then while we're working on this, there's still some opportunities. Someone may be out on a medical leave, an extended medical leave, where we would want to hire in somebody to cover a 3-month stint with us, right? And so we're still making sure we do have a piece of that budget, but we will be taking some of that budget to put towards these costs. And so the offset, I believe, don't quote me, is probably around 300,000 additional is all this is going to cost us.
Great, thank you, Director Wilburn. Vice Chair Dubin.
Yes, I love the wording that this is a dream because it's just so very exciting. And I just want to comment on the 8-hour staffing model. I think it really works for patrons too. I know, as just having gone to the library for years and having every library have these crazy hours and trying to keep them all in my head, they were never very uniform. And so it's like, you can just remember it's 10 to 5 or 10 to 6 and then 10 to 5 on Friday and Saturday. So I think that's really, really great. And I did have a question about Scotts Valley. I think Scotts Valley used to be open on Sundays. I know that there was, never. I know there was some kind of regional model where they were trying to do the Saturday and the Sunday. So I was just curious to make sure that no one really cared that the Valley would not have a Sunday library open.
Felton had the Sunday hours. They were open the 1 to 5, and really there was so little foot traffic into the building that it just made the most sense at this point to drop it and have everyone as the 6th day. Not to say that down the line analysis might come in to say that Scotts Valley should, and then we would have to look at it. We've actually done some cost estimates for what it would what you would need to add staffing wise to open on Sundays. So we have that in our back pocket.
Yes, and as Laura was saying, that does create more cost because now you're trying to cover 7 days a week. And you have full-time staff that it's from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. open hours on Sunday. And you're burning full-time staff to be able to accomplish that, which is not in our best interest. It's not the best use of our funding. It's not the best use of our staff, because then we get thinner as we try to open for more hours.
Great questions, Vice Chair Dubin. Thank you for the clarifying responses. We'll go to Commissioner Wynne now.
Well, thank you very much. And this really is helpful. And I appreciate you going into the weeds because I have a much better understanding now, especially about those 20-hour library assistant too. So if you could just help me understand, like who would take a job as a 20-hour a week library assistant too? Is that someone that you hope to groom into a full-time position? Or is that someone who's just really looking for a half-time job and they're just going to work a half-time job kind of indefinitely?
It could be either.
Okay.
Oftentimes people come to the library looking for that part-time job, and they're here for a while and they go, I really like the library and now I want to work towards getting my master's degree, or, I want to move up, I want to progress. And so with this plan, we're hoping by being able to get people trained, that's a big piece of this, because we're seeing that we have library assistant twos who are our temporary staff who want to come to work for us permanently, but when they go to interview, they don't necessarily have the skills and the knowledge level to pass the exam, and therefore they're not being hired. And so we want to make sure that our staff are prepared. We should be preparing them to be retained in this organization, to be able to advance in this organization. And if they eventually want to go and get their master's in library science and move into librarianship, we want to be able to support them in that.
Thank you. That's fantastic. And I also want to give a kudos on the Sunday hours. In the past, I've gone down to downtown. It's nice to have a second option. So I really appreciate that. Thank you.
If there are no other commissioner questions, I would like to go to public comment. I believe we do have public comment on this item.
We do have public comment. Caller ending. Oh, I'm sorry.
Moderator Jones, I just saw Commissioner Woll raise her hand. So before we go to public comment, let's take one more commissioner question.
No, I'm sorry. I don't have a question.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. Okay, go ahead, Moderator Jones.
All right. Telephone caller ending in 362. Your hand is up. Go ahead. You may need to press *6.
Hi, good evening. This is Judy. And as somebody with an MA in library science, when I moved here about 30 years ago, I was pretty surprised coming into the library system and learning that the branches were not managed by a professional librarian. So I'm anxious to hear what happens with the next phase, where you're maybe hiring more professional librarians. Not me necessarily, I am retired. But that's a great idea because, and also the fact that, the library assistants should be, getting benefits. So that's very important as well. And one thing that seemed odd is that you really think people are going to need to be driving from like Scotts Valley to Boulder Creek to give somebody a lunch break? That sounds crazy. And I guess that's all my comments for this agenda item. So thank you.
Thank you. Elaine Anderson, go ahead.
Hi, excuse me. This is Elaine Anderson. I'm a retired library staff member, retired November 2020. Worked most of my career in collection management services. When I saw this on the agenda, I wanted to find out what the proposal was for collection management services. I have some concerns. So at this point, what phase are you considering discussing collection management services?
And
So
if that's the end of your public comment, Ms. Anderson,
yes.
we can ask the director, Wilburn, do you have any quick response in terms of when collection services is in the phases?
That would be in our next phase as we address librarians.
All right, our next commenter is Jean Bean. You have 3 minutes. Go ahead.
Hi, commissioners and Director Wilburn. This is Jean Brocklebank. I live in Live Oak now. I've been a library patron for 40 years, since 1979, more than 40 years. And since the Live Oak branch is closed right now, my husband and I have been using the Capitola branch and downtown. Both of them are equidistant from us. We either walk or bicycle to the library. So I am really pleased with studying. I learned a lot with the presentation of your staffing level reorganization. As a patron, that sounds really good to me. I'm fine without a branch being open on Sunday. I think everybody needs a day of rest. And but the staffing levels especially sound good for not only staff, but providing services to the public, to the patrons. So it seems like you've worked on something that's good for staff, good for the library, and good for the patrons. And I'm very pleased with what I heard tonight. Thank you.
And Chair Bass, that does appear to end our public comments.
Great. Thank you, members of the public, for sharing your thoughts and your questions with us tonight. If there are no other comments on the presentation, we are not expected to take any action on this. It was just to hear the information. So if there are no additional comments or questions, I will thank Director Wilburn, Assistant Director Howard, Laura, all of your hard work and wonderful efforts to bring forward such a strong, robust staffing plan for phase one. Sounds like this is achieving win-wins for the staff and for the public and the services that you all offer. We've commented on the robust nature of what you all provide as evidenced in the packet for tonight's meeting. And it's exciting to think about what will be possible with this additional capacity. So
thank you, Chair Bass. Thank you. And I will just add to that, you know, this really couldn't have happened without the input from our staff and people being open and honest as I went through and did the listening session. So I really want to take a moment just to thank all of our staff for participating in the conversation so that we could get to a better place that, as you said, and as some of our callers said, it really meets the needs of the staff, the operation, but most importantly, it meets the needs of the community as well. So thank you.
well done. Good work, everyone. So that concludes item 8 on the agenda. Means we will move along to our general business agenda. There's one item on the general business agenda tonight, and that is item A. It's a resolution to reaffirm the Library Advisory Commission endorsement of the Downtown Library and Affordable Housing Project. I will hand the floor over to Vice Chair Dubin to introduce this item. I do want to make a couple of comments though, Rena, before we begin. we received a lot of input on this item from the public, and I want to thank everyone for taking the time to share their opinions with us. I think that's incredibly important to commissioners to see that in their packets, and helps inform the conversation that we have tonight. We did receive some comments questioning whether or not the commission does have the authority to hear this item. And so I did want to assure members of the public that we did look at that, and we did talk with the city attorney just to ensure the most appropriate, transparent way that this item could be heard when it was brought to us. And we were assured that it is well within the jurisdiction of the commission to take a position in support or opposition of a ballot measure in an open and public meeting where all perspectives may be shared. And so while this resolution that's before us tonight is reaffirming a position that the commission took in 2018 off the recommendation of the Downtown Library Advisory Committee, our jurisdiction and powers do indicate that it is upon us to provide advice and feedback. We've done that before on this topic, and with the ballot measure that is moving forward jeopardizes a decision that was made by this body previously. And so it was our thinking that tonight would be an opportunity for us to revisit this item. And therefore, I am going to turn it over to the commissioner with us tonight who has the most experience, the most history with this item, and that is Vice Chair Dubin, who served as a member of the Downtown Library Advisory Committee. With that, there's only two additional things I'll say before I turn it over to Vice Chair Dubin, which is there are two adjustments to the item tonight that I think are important to make based on feedback that we did receive from the public. The first is the preface of this is a staff report. I think it should read agenda report. So that's just an error on our part. We can make that correction. That was important feedback from the community. The second is in the resolution, it refers to the Downtown Library Advisory Commission, and that is a typo. That should read committee. So with those two adjustments, I will now hand the topic over to Vice Chair Dubin. Rena, the floor is yours.
Thank you. As Chair Bass said, it does seem like our downtown, our future will be on the ballot. And I knew that we had this body before I came on, the Library Advisory Commission had already endorsed the new downtown library project. So I thought it was appropriate for us to reaffirm our commitment to the downtown library and affordable housing project. I have been involved in this issue for years. My daughter, actually, I told her that we will be talking about this tonight, and she did remind me that I started this when she was in middle school, and now she's going to be graduating from college at the end of this year. So it feels like a long journey. But I was on the Downtown Library Advisory Committee, and that committee, we did put this in the background, but it was formed because the Measure S funding, because we had this regional model at the time, and it was tricky, I think, to allocate all of the funds across the various branches, so that the way the funding worked, the allocation was placed so that we had they knew already that it wasn't going to be quite enough money for the downtown branch. And the Santa Cruz City Council wanted to figure out what the best use of funds would be for that, to figure out how we could have the best library for the downtown branch with the money that we had available. And so after that, the Downtown Library Advisory Committee, we met over 12 times. There was a lot of public input. We had a survey where over 2,000 people actually responded to the survey. So we had a very good understanding of what the community needed and came up with this plan for the to endorse the mixed use facility at that time. And the Santa Cruz City Council has given tremendous support over many iterations of city council. As the city council has changed, they've still voted to promote this project and to move forward with this process. There was a Santa Cruz Council Subcommittee, which I think is good to note because that was the place where they did go through each of the two options and in a lot more detail. And that subcommittee found that the downtown library and affordable housing project was the best option for the library. And I just really, on a personal note, it's been really overall wonderful for me to be part of this public process over this long of a time and just see like what the vision we had as the Downtown Library Advisory Committee. We had the vision of a lot of affordable housing units. We had the vision of the rooftop garden and lots of community gathering spaces. And I think the project has just, with all the community input, and Jason Architect has had multiple give and takes with presenting the designs at various stages and gathering community input. And I just think this is a better project than it could have been. And it's really based on what the community has said and how they have incorporated a lot of the community's wishes. So on that, I think I will end unless there's anything else.
Great, thank you, Vice Chair Dubin. I'll open it up to questions first from commissioners. I see Commissioner Wynne.
You know, I've been watching this for quite a long time, and I spent my career in government, and this is the model of how government is supposed to work. There were lots of community meetings. There were lots of opportunities to provide input. Every iteration got better, more beautiful, more responsive. It's a beautiful design. It takes into account a whole bunch of needs that Santa Cruz has, but most importantly, it provides the community with a spectacular downtown central branch. I know I'm not supposed to say central branch, it's just supposed to be a downtown branch, but you know, we need a big, vibrant, dynamic downtown branch to really support all the other branches. So I am just a very strong proponent of this downtown model. And I'm a very active community member. I'm active in the Aptos Friends of the Library. I'm a volunteer at the library. We table at the farmers market every week in Aptos, every month in Aptos. I've heard from the community. They like this plan. So I am speaking as a community member who talks to community members, and I'm in very strong support of your resolution, Rena, and I thank you for the work that you've done on it.
Thank you, Commissioner Wynne. Before we do too much more deliberation, I want to make sure that we answer any questions that we have from commissioners, and then we'll go to public comment. We'll bring it back for deliberation. Are there any additional questions from commissioners before we turn to the public? Seeing none, I am going to turn to Moderator Jones to see if we have public comment on this item.
And we do have public comment. Caller ending in 362, go ahead.
Good evening again. Wow, there were several statements made here. Ms. Wynne, you've tabled at the Aptos Farmers Market. People seem to be in favor of the project, but when I've joined in tabling at the Downtown Farmers Market, people are quite appalled by the idea of losing Lot 4. And Commissioner Dubin, Yes, you know, I was at every one of those Library Advisory Commission meetings, Downtown Library Advisory Commission meetings. And yes, way back when in 2013, the facilities plan showed that a new library would cost way more than the $23 million that was the initial allocation. So they knew that, which is a shame because that allowed for this abomination of a garage library idea. Anyway, I think the commission is way overreaching with your resolution because I've read your bylaws and there is nothing in it that allows you to come out against a ballot initiative. And of course, express your approval of the project for the library, but there's no role for you to take a stand against a ballot initiative. I won't go on because people need to talk. I think the reference to the farmers market should come out of your resolution, and I'm glad to know that the staff report snafu will be corrected to read agenda report. So anyway, I was hoping you would not vote on this tonight because of the issues of the bylaws. You are way overstepping. Thank you.
Thank you. Jean Bean, go ahead. You have 3 minutes.
Hello, commissioners. I want you to know, first of all, I'm not a member of the ballot measure group. I haven't been. Most of you are new. Rena knows that I, in 2016, started the Don't Bury the Library campaign. So I am mostly interested about the library and abandoning the library and not spending money to create a modernized, vibrant, wonderful downtown branch by using that money to modernize the branch. That downtown library branch has supported all the other branches for over 50 years. We don't need a new one to support all the other branches. And the space and the design that I've seen, especially with those 30-foot ceilings and the up to the mezzanine, there's a whole lot of air in the new modern library, which has bird kill windows in it, by the way. And I think we could have as good a services and programs with a renovated downtown library. I sent a comment, many of you may have read it. The Library Advisory Commission is intended to be a voice of the community to provide advice and feedback to the governing board and the director of libraries. I am quoting from your enabling legislation, your powers and duties. The commission will review programs and services and make necessary recommendations as they pertain to the provision of these programs and services. The vice chair changed the wording of your powers and duties, and it's a big change because it just says feedback regarding issues pertaining to the library. It doesn't say to whom. Your enabling legislation says that advice and feedback goes to the governing board and the director of libraries. Since this resolution is neither advice nor feedback to the governing board or the library director, I think it should have been removed from the agenda, and I don't care what the city attorney said. As well as improper stretching the truth of the powers and duties of the Library Advisory Commission is a slippery slope, in my opinion. It's time for this body to follow the rules. Thank you.
Thank you. Attendee Farrell, your 3 minutes begins. Go ahead. You may need to
Thank you,
unmute.
Chair Bass and commission members. I live on the east side of Santa Cruz, very close to the Branson 40 branch. I want to thank the Advisory Commission for all the work you've done in planning for the upgrades, the new library in Capitola, the new library in Aptos, And I'm very excited that Santa Cruz is going to have an opportunity to get a new library just like Capitola and Aptos. Building new structures to meet the goals of Measure S is not the exception. It's been the practice for many branches. Clearly, this proposal is the best proposal for the community of Santa Cruz and the system of the library. Abe Jason, who's the architect who was responsible for doing both the design for the renovation and the design for the new downtown branch, said that the renovation of the existing library would result in a mediocre facility. When we have an opportunity to do something that serves all the members of our community with greater resources and effectiveness, and also meets housing needs, I think it's imperative that we do those things. So I just want to applaud the commission for its courage in addressing this issue and for exercising your responsibility of to not only advise the Library Joint Powers Authority, but our community and all the people who are going to be asked to make a decision on this in November. Thank you.
Thank you. And Lisa Ekstrom, go ahead. 3 minutes begins now. Lisa, if you're talking, we cannot hear you.
Can you hear me now?
We can. Yes.
Oh, great. Thank you. And thank you, commissioners. I want to add to something that Jean brought up a minute ago about the bylaws for the Library Advisory Commission name just 3 functions and duties, the first one of which is A, act as a voice of the community to provide advice and feedback to the governing board and the director of libraries. Regarding this proposed resolution, how can you claim to be acting as a voice of the community since it's been widely acknowledged that the community is so strongly divided on the mixed use project and the use of Measure S funds? And it also seems counter to that duty indeed to oppose a ballot measure that actually gives the community voice or a vote. Referencing the report on this resolution, there are a number of misleading statements that I could point out, but for now, I'm going to bring attention to just 3. First, in discussing the work of the DLAC, the report reads, the DLAC also conducted focus groups and a community survey in which 2,273 people participated. It's not mentioned here, but it is vital to know that nowhere in that community survey was there any question or even a mention of potentially moving the library or combining it with other uses, including a new parking garage. The report next says the DLAC unanimously concluded that a new library as part of a mixed-use project was the only option that allowed for a modern library with a fiscally responsible price. It's important to point out that the fiscally responsible price referred to in that DLAC statement was $26.7 million. The most recent estimate we've heard given for just the library portion of the mixed-use project was $42 million. Meanwhile, the estimate that the DLAC quoted for a full renovation of the existing library was $37.8 million. So what kind of exciting full renovation of our library might we have seen if this had gone forward instead in 2016? Finally, the resolution itself concludes, opposes any ballot measure that will further delay the development of a beautiful and vibrant community asset. And I feel obliged to remind us all that if the city government had not been so deaf to the community and stubborn in insisting on this enormously expensive project, we could very likely today be enjoying our fully renovated, beautiful and vibrant community asset designed to improve the ability for all age groups and demographics to access information, education, enrichment, and inspiration.
And
In
Lisa,
other
we'll have
words,
to stop
our
you
new
there.
downtown library. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you for your comment. And Lyra Filippini, go ahead. Your 3 minutes starts now.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can.
Great, thank you. Hi, Lyra Filippini here. It's so important to hear that the LAC's bylaws indicate that your duty is to act as a voice of the community. The staff report for this agenda item is clearly only representing one side of a contentious community situation. This report reads like a piece of propaganda, not the unbiased information piece we need in a fair democratic process. As my time is limited, I'll simply give some examples of things left out of the report you were given to review for this item. The first is about public comment throughout this process. Public comment leading up to the formation of the Our Downtown, Our Future initiative has been roughly 75% against moving the library. At the May 14th, 2019 City Council meeting, 75% of public comment was against moving the library. At the June 23rd, 2020 Council meeting, 80% of public comment was against moving the library. And at the October 27th, 2020 meeting, 76% of public comment was against moving the library. Another example is that the major diversion from and omission of some of the key reasons of the city indicated they would consider the library as part of the new mixed-use project in the first place. In the staff report to City Council in November of 2016, it says, quote, "The downtown library and parking structure feasibility study was performed under the basic assumption of gaining a 44,000 square foot first floor area as recommended by the library master plan. A single level library with significant street frontage provides for much improved library operations, as well as the opportunity for the library to provide emerging 21st century library services," end quote. The mixed use library proposal is now 3 long and narrow floors, which is the opposite of moving from 2 stories to 1 story. Also left out is the city's current estimation of square footage, which is that the public indoor space is only a little over 2,000 square feet larger in the mixed use proposal than the renovation plan. The large 3rd floor mezzanine, complete with a lounge, a grand piano, and an art gallery, amount to that difference. These are not assets in a public library. And with a price tag of over $42 million, which is much more than the renovation would cost, it should make you wonder why certain people are so attached to this plan. So much is being left out of the comparison between our options, like what would be better for families. The renovation plans where the children's area would have their own children's patio and garden directly off of it, or the mixed use plan that places the children's area on the ground floor at the opposite side of the long, narrow building from the 3rd floor roof deck, the only outdoor space. I know you take your positions very seriously, and we appreciate that. And I hope that that means you will want to take a more fair review of both of the options and not vote to oppose a citizens' initiative. After all, how can you act as a voice of the community if the information you are reviewing is unfairly being provided by a powerful and coordinated select few who didn't even include the most important question in the DLAC community survey?
And Lyra, your time is up.
Or do we renovate it? We will vote in November. Thank you so much for your consideration and for your service.
Thank you for your comment. And Chair Bass, I believe that ends the public comment.
Great, thank you. I want to thank the members of the public that joined us for our meeting tonight and so eloquently and passionately represented their views. I think given that this item has come before this body before, given that this is germane to the provision of programs and services in our library system, it's important for the commission to at least discuss this. Vice Chair Dubin has brought forward a thoughtful resolution, and it is our intention tonight with the best consultation we have, that this is within our jurisdiction and duties, as we have heard this topic before as well, to have a conversation about it. And that is part of our role as a community body, is to address important germane issues to the health and the well-being of our library system. So as members of the community, I'm going to open it up to our commissioners for additional comments and even questions they may have in response to some of the citizen feedback that we've heard tonight. Are there any additional commissioner comments? Commissioner Termini?
First of all, I have to disagree with some of the voices we've heard, that this is advising the other government bodies that listen to what we say is paramount. And I have heard from a great number of the community, both in the city of Santa Cruz and out. I also have the perspective of having battled the existing building for many, many years, patching it up with duct tape and paper clips for 20 years, where we kept, as a board, as the JPA, we kept hearing about heating systems and electrical systems and plumbing systems that were past their useful life. Also, having the perspective of being in construction for many years, those three systems, the HVAC, the mechanical, the electrical, and the plumbing of a building, can sometimes add up to half the budget. If we were to jump into that existing building and take it down to its skeleton and rebuild it, there's no telling what the cost would be. So from a financial standpoint, I cannot see any way we can get a 21st century library of the type that has been designed in any other way than this joint use program. You only have to look at the Watsonville branch, not our system, but still our sister branch, to see what a remarkable asset that has been to that community in the way they did it. So I'm fully in favor of reinforcing our recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Termini. Are there any other comments from commissioners? I'll just say that we tried to be very thoughtful in bringing this forward tonight and do our due diligence, and in bringing it forward, doing so in the most transparent manner we could. A resolution we felt was the best way to do that. We got the agenda packet out early to afford the community time to look at that. That background and resolution do reference some of the key documents that have informed this long pathway that this project has been on. And I have found it instructive to do a thorough review of the documents and the process that's been taken. And it's hard to discount the fact that time and again, after public process through the DLAC, through the City Council Subcommittee, through continued evaluations by Jason Architecture, that it keeps coming back to the best option for a 21st century library is a mixed use and affordable housing project. So I think it's important for this body to consider all of that information, and for commissioners to, with their citizen hat on, make their best assessment and advisement for both our library director tonight and the governing bodies that listen to us, as Commissioner Termini referenced, and for citizens that look to this body for insight on these issues. So with that, I will entertain motions on the item.
I move approval of the resolution in front of us.
I will second it.
We have a motion to approve by Commissioner Wynne and a second by Commissioner Termini. Clerk Simona Vargas, will you please do a roll call vote?
Jennifer Mount is absent. Mary Ripma,
Aye.
Mike Termini,
Aye.
Pamela Woll,
Aye.
Tricia Wynne,
Aye.
Vice Chair Rena Dubin,
Aye.
and Chair Lindsay Bass.
Aye. That motion passes unanimously. Thank you, everyone, for your work and effort. I think it's also worth stating that while we may have different ideas of how to get there, everybody that has spoken tonight believes in a strong library system, and we understand that they are passionate in their love for the library, and I think that we all share a common desire to have a strong, powerful system, potentially just different ways of getting there. But we appreciate you and your feedback and comments tonight. It makes for a robust and democratic process. With that, we close out on item 9, which is our general business agenda. Item 10 is scheduled upcoming meetings. So our next meeting will be September 19th. Encourage commissioners to point the public to the packet from tonight for all of its wonderful information and resources on the latest and greatest that's happening in our wonderful library system. Don't forget about Scotts Valley branch opening. And with that, we will adjourn for the evening. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all.